Why would any sane person head for Newfoundland on a 53-year-old bike at the end of April, when winter is barely over? This is a question I asked myself as I rode along the busy Highway 401 heading for Quebec, New Brunswick, and Nova Scotia. It's normally a 2-day ride to reach the ferry dock at North Sydney. I took 3 because of the cold and wet, stopping in Rivière-du-Loup and Truro on the way. It was evening when the ferry berthed at Port aux Basques, and I ended up camping near the Cape Ray Lighthouse, a few kilometers out of town. I wasn't the first to camp here. People have been coming here for thousands of years. It was a frosty morning, so I packed up quickly and headed for Burgeo on the south coast. This attractive, isolated town is only accessible by boat, or the single road from the north. I'd driven this road with my wife the previous year, but I'd wanted to ride it on the bike. Mountains, then forest, gradually give way to open, windswept rock and swamp barrens, too cold and wild to support trees or anything much else. Fabulous. This may be the land God gave to Cain, but I think it's wonderful. Eventually I reached Burgeo, and after filling up with fuel, headed for a restaurant I'd been told about. But before I could get there, I was waylaid by bandits. Just a little one, yeah.
That's $2.
That's perfect.
Okay. Okay.
What's she charging?
Oh, somebody else is coming. Kate, $2.
What are you charging?
$2.
$2.
Oh, no, they're not.
Well, there's 4.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks.
Thank you so much. There's another truck coming.
Oh, that's good.
I love your motorcycle. Yeah, your motorcycle's really cool. Yeah, I love it. Lemonade!
Is Lisa's restaurant just at the top of the hill?
Lisa's? Yeah. It's that white one right there.
Oh, perfect.
There's a blue car in front of it.
Can I give you this back?
Yeah, sure.
Better not reuse it.
Yeah.
I might have some deadly disease.
Yeah, it's just like by the white one right there.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Burgeo is a pretty little town, so after a decent lunch of fish and chips I rode around for a bit to get a feel for the place before heading back the way I'd come. It had been a long haul from Burgeo up to Deer Lake where I stayed for the night, and by the time I got there I was wet. It was going to be a long, cold day heading east from Deer Lake the next day. Even though it was sunny, it was barely above freezing. But the forecast was for a heavy 2-day rainstorm which would affect the whole island. I'd been invited to wait this out with a couple of generous people who were aware of my travels. Their home is on the east side of Trinity Bay, over 600 kilometers away. It's a fine ride up the east side of Trinity Bay, passing through a string of villages: Dildo, New Harbour, Cavendish, Heart's Delight, Heart's Content, Turk's Cove, Winterton. Yeah, some of the names sound a bit strange, but hey, this is Newfoundland, where very little is ordinary.
Place?
Where?
Oh, hey!
Hey!
Whoop.
Hi, Nick.
Let's get a gear. Nice to meet
Mike.
you. Mike.
Nice to meet you. Welcome.
With the bike warm and dry in Mike's garage, I spent the next 2 days hiding from the rain, while Mike worked on his BMW and I did an oil change on the Guzzi. Eventually the weather broke, and while it remained cold, at least we could get moving. Mike had decided to join me for a couple of days exploring down the Burin Peninsula.
So we said first off, we were going to see about hitting this one.
Yeah.
Sure.
That's what, about 20 kilometers? Or did we want to go down this one?
Oh yeah, sure.
May as well.
Each time we encountered a road leading to shoreline communities, we took it. This short road led to the delightfully named village of Come By Chance. About 25 kilometers of gravel road led to the shoreline communities of Davis Cove and Monkstown. Mike's KTM 640 and Mike's riding skill made riding this road look like nothing. I plodded along on the old Guzzi, slowing for the corners and dancing around potholes. More side roads, more shoreline communities. As you can see from the blue skies, for once the weather was on our side, even though the air temperature didn't encourage any sunbathing or swimming. Eventually we headed back to the main highway, carried on down to Marysville, then on to a peaceful night's camping on the beach between Garnish and Frenchman's Cove. Just before we got to the beach, Mike's sump guard fell off his KTM. No problem. The bolts just vibrated loose. We'd worry about that in the morning. It was a cool start to the day when we woke up from our camp in Frenchman's Cove. But once we'd brushed the frost from the tents and packed, we found some hard standing so we could check Mike's oil level, as it had been leaking the previous day. It was down a little bit, and something to keep an eye on, but not enough to be worrisome. Back at home, Mike discovered that it was leaking from a bad filter gasket. An easy fix. After a fine breakfast in Grand Bank at Sharon's Nook, we rolled on to nearby Fortune, where we met this guy outside the customs office to Saint-Pierre-and-Miquelon, islands which are part of France.
What do you think of the island so far?
Well, I'm from here. I live in Trinity Bay.
Oh, I see, yeah.
He's down from Ontario.
Oh. Yeah.
Who leaves Ontario in April to go to Newfoundland?
He got good clothes.
Yeah.
Warm clothes.
Yeah, I have warm clothes on here for May too.
So, some people might say he's a slow learner.
Oh, yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. I worked in Ontario for 6 years in resort up there.
Yeah.
And the fellow from Vancouver, see, he came when he said, "Oh, you're from Newfoundland?" Yes. I said, "Yeah." He said, "I nearly froze down there." Like that, eh? Well, I said, "What do you come down on?" Well, he said, "I was riding my motorcycle." He said, "And a wife and a suitcase on the back. That's all I had." So I said, "What time of the year?" Well, he said, "It was, getting in the fall, right?" And I said, "So which when you came off the ferry, which way did you went?" He said, "I went towards St. Anthony, the coldest part of the island."
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Just outside Fortune, we rode in to see the lighthouse of Fortune Head. Once again, it was a gravel road. There were one or two bouncy spots where rainwater had created some minor erosion channels, but it was nothing the Eldorado couldn't manage with dignity. Nice spot, cool and breezy. I wasn't inclined to linger. Quite a few miles further on, around the boot of the Burin Peninsula, Mike was keen to get a photograph of the Allen's Island lighthouse. While he was inside chatting to the keeper, I wandered down to the shore, then got engrossed listening to this guy.
I had a little kid at the time.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, boys. You wouldn't believe it. I was only up there for a couple of weeks. But when I got home, I see the difference in that, right? He got into the heady south there when he got up and off.
As I subsequently discovered, the Americans he was referring to were stationed at a short-lived military radar station called sign Chinko, which was in use during World War II. But we were moving on. The weather was cooling, and Mike and I had a long haul back to Goobies on the Trans-Canada Highway before going our separate ways. After a rather pleasant night at the Wave Motel in Clarenville, I awoke early, full of enthusiasm to switch the tyre on the back of my bike. The one I'd been riding on was worn out. From past experience, the biggest problem with changing tyres on the Eldorado is getting the wheel out from between the swinging arm and the rear mudguard. Even on the centre stand there isn't enough room, and in the past I've had to resort to other tricks. By parking the bike with the wheel overhanging this small curb, there was just enough space to wiggle it free. 9/10 of the battle of changing tyres is having all the tools you need, and plenty of lubricant to ease the tyre over the rim. I was using Hotel shampoo. Even in the morning cold, as you can see, it was a relatively easy process. It took me about 40 minutes from start to finish. With the weather starting to turn again, I was glad that I'd be running on a tyre that wasn't completely slick in the middle. I knew this next day was going to be soggy, and it wasn't long before my expectations were realised. I hoped that by looping north up to Musgrave Harbour, I could avoid the worst of the rain. How wrong could a guy be? Still, it would be churlish to complain. The riding was easy, the traffic was light, and I was in no hurry to be anywhere in particular. I wasn't even totally wet, yet. I stopped for lunch at the Rocky Ridge Diner before carrying on to Lewisport and Grand Falls, Windsor. I have no pictures or video from the rest of the day. The rain was torrential. Thank heavens for motel heaters to dry out some of my soggy gear. Sometimes it seems as though the universe takes pity on a poor traveller and throws up a beauty of a day in compensation for hardships recently endured. Such was the case this day. It was still cool, but with clear blue skies and stunning sunshine. I was heading south towards the Burin Peninsula and the small town of Harbour Breton, another coastal area reachable by a single road through the heart of the Newfoundland wilderness. When I reached Harbour Breton, I filled up with fuel before heading through the village to have a look at the lighthouse. Honestly, I don't have a whole lot of interest in lighthouses, but they're often situated in very scenic locations, so they're usually worth a visit. This one was no exception. Great views of the fjords and inlets to rocky headlands across startlingly blue water. Next stop, Seal Cove, and after a very satisfying lunch of fish and chips in Sandyville, do you see a pattern emerging here? I decided it was time for a little adventure. I've been told of a small road heading across the peninsula. Well, it had to be worth a look.
Discretion is the better part of valor. Said that many times. Say it again.
I probably could have continued, but sometimes it's best to recognize the limitations of machine and rider. The Guzzi's low-hanging sump is vulnerable to rocks, and her aged rider isn't as invincible as I used to pretend I once was. Without question, the wild, bare uplands of the Harbour Peninsula had been the scenic high point so far. But my time and stamina was gradually running out. Towards the end of this utterly glorious day, I pointed the bike north and headed back to the Trans-Canada Highway. I dithered about staying in Grand Falls, Windsor again, but after such a wonderful day, I felt inspired to keep riding. As evening closed in, I arrived at the same motel I'd stayed in Deer Lake a week before. The lady at reception remembered me and made sure I got a room with easy access to the bike. By the way, it's not a cheap place to stay, but the included breakfast is one of the best I've ever experienced. That night, I booked the evening ferry for my return to the mainland, giving me plenty of time to get back down to Port aux Basques, then on to visit the lighthouse at Rose Blanche, further along the coast. Once again, it was a damp, cool day, but it did nothing to distract from the austere barrens along the way, or diminish the appeal of the old stone lighthouse. It seemed fitting that my last act before heading to the ferry was to visit a natural wonder. This lovely waterfall was just a short walk in from the road. By the time the ferry docked in Nova Scotia, I was well rested and ready for the road. Of course, it was raining again. Oh well, you have to take the rough with the smooth, although I only rode the 638 kilometers to Fredericton, and not as far as I'd hoped. The last day was an 1,100-kilometer marathon, with heavy traffic through Montreal. As I pulled into a rest stop just inside Ontario, I discovered that my rear rack had completely failed. A few moments creatively strapping, and we were on our way again for the final push home. Worth the effort and the discomfort? definitely. If you enjoyed this video, you will almost certainly enjoy my various motorcycle books. They're available from Amazon in paperback, digital and audiobook formats, narrated by me. Search for Nick Adams Motorcycle. Thanks for watching.